We have an interesting shtickle chumash tonight. Two interesting shtickles. Why is it interesting? Because the sefer I'm sitting here with is called Oyel Moshe. This is from a yid named Rav Moshe Scheinerman, who's a Rav in Flatbush. And he's Rav in Flatbush. If anyone knows him, this holds more weight. But he has a shtickle here in which he starts with Rav Elchanan. He continues with a Maisa from Rav Zusha. He then goes into Rav Tzaddik in Sikkus at Tzaddik, continues with a Maisa from Rav Hutner, and concludes with Rav Aharon Cutler. So he goes and he covers, what? That's all he's missing. Very good. He literally covers almost all segments of Jewry over here. And it's sometimes when you're, maybe that's goof of what he was trying to do here, I don't know. That sometimes when you're able to bring a snippet from Ala Gedalim saying the same line, it really just shows how much weight such a line has. So I'm going to start it. Before I say what he's saying, I'm going to begin with a pasuk. The pasuk in this week's parasha, Perek Mem Ches, begins that Ephraim u'Menashe received the status of Ruvain v'Shimon. Says the pasuk, Va'ata shnei banecha noladim l'cha be'eretz Mitzrayim ad ba'i elecha Mitzrayim elihem Ephraim u'Menashe keruvain v'Shimon yihuli. Says Yaakov Avinu, Ephraim and Menashe are now on the status of the Shiftei Ka. Givaldik. The psukim continue that Yaakov continues, Vayar Yisrael es b'nei Yosef. So now Yaakov Yisrael sees the children of Yosef. Vayomer, mi ela. Who are these kids? Vayomer Yosef, and Yosef says, Father, what do you mean? These are my kids that I brought. So the question is, a moment ago he just said that Ephraim and Menashe are like Reuven and Shimon. And then 3 psukim later, he starts going, who are these kids? Like, who are you? You're not ready for a bracha. So there's Naim L'Taira. I didn't see inside. Someone told me over this vart, and this is, I think, a very fitting akdama to what we're about to talk about. There's Naim L'Taira says that, of course, Yaakov Avinu knew who Reuven and Shimon were. Ephraim and Menashe, excuse me. But once they were elevated to Shvatim, they became different people. They are now Shvatim. And now, Yaakov Avinu is looking at these two, we'll call them kids. And Yaakov Avinu is saying, Ephraim and Menashe, mi'ela, who are you? You're Shvatim. You're no longer Ephraim and Menashe. You're now at the status of a Shevet. You're a different person that requires you to act differently. So mi'ela, who are you? And now, Rav Yeruchum in Das Chachma Moser Mamish says the same vart about Ruvain. What's Yaakov's bracha to Ruvain? Ruvain b'chayri ata. Koichi v'rashes ayni yeser seis v'yetzer az pachaz kamayim al taiser. That Ruvain, you acted, I believe the art scroll definition over here is with water-like impetu. I can't pronounce it. With an S. Something like that. I just don't know how to pronounce the word. But that word. That you acted too fast. Ruvain with the beds, and Rashi explains that what happened, that Ruvain, of course, moved the beds, and he's getting punished. And Yaakov is giving him musar. Says if Yeruchum, you have to read the whole pasuk together. Ruvain b'chayriyata. Because you're the bachar, you're held at a higher standard. And a bachar like you could not have done this act. Did what Ruvain did, was it so terrible? Of course not. And one would ask, what do you mean? Ruvain had the mid of zrizos. Ruvain's being incredible. He's just acting quickly. Isn't that what we're taught to do? Isn't that what we tell our kids to do? Isn't that what we tell ourselves to always do? Just act quickly. So what did he do wrong? The answer says, if Yerucham is, Ruvain b'chayriyata, because you are the bachar, that's required of you, a maila, the higher level of a bachar. You have to act higher. And that's the reason why he got this punishment for what he did. And he continues and he says, the very famous Maisa with Rav Zusha, the Rav Zusha used to say about himself, La'asid lavai. What are they going to ask me when I come up to Shemayim? They're going to ask me, La'asid lavai. Lo yish'alu oti. They're not going to ask me, Lama la yisi b'madrigas kadmainim. Why were you not on the level of the kadmainim? What are they going to ask me? Rak yish'alu oti. They're going to ask me, Lama lo hayiti Rav Zusha. We need to be held at the standard of ourselves, of who we are, the greatness that we have. And Rav Yisrael Salanter would say the same. I didn't mention him in my list of Gedalim quotes here. It says Rav Yisrael Salanter, and I quote, Amnam Yodei Ani, I know, Sheyesh li roish, I have a brain. Sheshakol keneged elef anoshim. Like 1,000 people. But you know what? I have an incredible obligation. Shekula keneged elef anoshim. I have to produce like 1,000 people. The greater we are, the greater we are obligated to act. And this is something that maybe we're sitting here and we're saying, okay, Salanter was Givaldik, Rav Zusha was Givaldik, and Ruvain B'chayriyata. But the rest of us, says if Yerucham Aveira Gedoyla Hi, you know it's a terrible Aveira. You don't know your problems. And sometimes we see people and we're like, it's such a nebuch. He doesn't realize what he's doing wrong. If he would only know, someone should just tell him. He could be better. But says Rav Yerucham, you know what's a greater Aveira? She'ena yodeas my loisav. That you don't know what you have. Everyone has their unique maila. Everyone has something special. No two snowflakes are the same. No two fingerprints are the same. No two eye retinas are the same. And with the fact that you're special, it's not just you're different. Sometimes, so I'm different. No, everyone has their unique mailos. Says Yehuchum, even more than not knowing what your deficient is not knowing what your maila is. And of course, this brings us to the very famous words of Rav Tzadok. I think they're famous. Kishem shesarach adam lahamid ba'kadosh baruch hu. And listen to his words. Kishem. What does kishem mean? Kishem means the same amount. The same amount that we have to have emunah in Hashem. What do you mean the same amount? Isn't that the greatest? You have to have emunah in Hashem. Finish. End of statement. Kach sarich acher kach lahamid ba'atzmai. Then you have to believe in yourself as well. And Rav Hutner said that bizman hazeh, nowadays there's no ein hayoim ein yitzra d'avodah zara. We don't have a yetzer of avodah zara, but you know what we have? Aval yesh yitzra d'minas acher, a different problem. V'hu, you know what the yetzer hara is? Says Rav Hutner, he who really understood people, we could say, with his depth, penetrated souls. The Yetzer that we have, as great as Yetzer Hara, as Avodah Zara, is Hanoshim Einon Ma'aminim Be'atzmam. People do not believe in themselves. And in case we weren't convinced enough, we'll conclude with the words of the Rosh Hashiva Rav Aharon. We'll conclude this segment. And says Rav Aharon Kotler, V'chayiv adam lehizbaynim, one is obligated to think, ulahakir, and to recognize, hachashivos hagedayla sheyesh boy ba'atzmusai, that he has in himself, ubekoyach shemizhaveh boy bepoyal emakarasai b'chashivos azu. And when you realize that, you realize what greatness you have lying inside of you. And he says, this is part of Banim Atem LaHashem Elokeichem. So the lesson number one that we could take from the parsha, that we could take from Ephraim and Menashe being on the level of Reuven and Shimon, that once they attained this level and they got this boost and they got this promotion, you're no longer a little worker, you're no longer a little Ephraim and Menashe, you're now on the level of the Shiftei Ka. Says Yaakov, who are you? I don't recognize you anymore, you're so great. And Rav Yerucham teaches us that's why Reuven was punished, and we have to all look ourselves hard and cold, like Rav Hutner taught us, like Avodah Zara, incredible, is not believing in ourselves. And I think this really could just explain this on a very practical level. What does that mean? What does it mean? Let's, this all sounds very flowery. Let's just be real for a moment. What are all our Gedalim teaching us? What does Rav Tzadok mean? You got to believe in yourself like you believe in Hashem. What do you mean? I believe in myself. I'm a great guy. I daven, I learn, I do Averis. What's the problem? What do I need to believe in? What does Rav Hutner mean? At the same level as Avodah Zara is that we don't believe in ourselves. I believe. I'll just tell you what my feeling is in reading these words of the Gedalim, is that we sell ourselves short. That of course we believe in ourselves. And yes, we all have gaiva. And yes, and we all think we're incredible. And yes, we all think we don't get enough credit for what we do 100%. It's true, yes. And that's something to work on, and that's a different story. But what our Gedalim are teaching us, that if we really understood the power that we have, and you see it sometimes. Sometimes you see this little 21-year-old kid that has this unique idea and he works Yom V'Layla for 2 years straight, comes up with this incredible invention. And like, how do you do that? Because he had a brain and he had a passion and he had a desire And he went and he did something. And one of the greatest, I think I said this before, one of the greatest Musar Shmuz I ever heard in my life was someone playing me a clip from Kobe Bryant. And he was explaining how when he was in high school, he was not the greatest, he was not the fastest, he was not the strongest, and he wasn't at all. But yet, he did that much more than his peers. Why? Because he wanted it that much more. So I think if we were to realize that we all have powers, we all have brains, we all have incredible koiches, incredible. And we sell ourselves short. We say, nah, I'm not able to learn. I'm not able to have kavanah. I can't really do chasadim, and I have this issue and that issue, and I'm so busy at home, and I'm so busy with this, and I can't do this, and I can't do that. And we have all the I can'ts. Rav Hutner is teaching us, that's a Vaita Zara. We have to look ourselves in the mirror one day. And as we grow up, maybe, there has to come a point in our life that we have to say, wait, what am I doing in this world? Am I becoming great? When I get up after 120, what are they going to ask me? They're not going to ask me, why didn't you start that organization? Or why didn't you finish Shas like that guy? Or why didn't you write a sefer like that guy? They're going to ask you, were you yourself? You with your unique koiches, with your incredible special brain and talents, did you figure out a way to utilize what Hashem gave you to be great? And it's not necessarily about having the biggest organization or the greatest sefer or the most money. Being great could be within one's own self and his dalet amos behind his closed door, that he could be the greatest father, the greatest husband. That's greatness as well. Greatness, what is our ikar tachlis on this world, whether it sounds difficult to hear or not, is for your own family and for your own children and to raise diaries. That's what we're here for. Everything else comes secondary. Halavai, want to be able to do that and be able to do others. So, are we being the greatest husband, the greatest father to our children? Are we able to look ourselves and say, we did everything that my children will be the greatest they can be because I gave them? That's the words of all our Gedalim. Ruvain b'chayri ata b'siyata d'shmaya. This Aveira Gedailah, like Rabbi Yehuchum said, to not know your chesroinais. I think many of us know our chesroinais. But let's try to know our mailas. So lesson number one to bring out of the parasha. Again, let's just go through the list. We have Rav Yehuchum. We have Yisrael Salanter like 1,000 people. We have Rav Zusha Lachamer. Rav Esrim asked if he's Rav Zusha. We have Rav Yehuchum continuing the Aveira of not knowing your mailas. We have Rav Tzaddik telling us we have to believe in yourself as much as you believe in Hashem. Kishem. We have the Baal Pachad Yitzchak, Rav Hutner, teaching us that Avodah Zarah of our day and age. He didn't say technology. He didn't say all the other issues. He said, what is the Hayoim, the Yetzer of Avodah Zarah is that we don't believe in ourselves. And finally, is Rav Aharon Color telling us, take a cold, hard look in the mirror. Chayiv, you have an obligation to think and to recognize your unique greatness, your unique talents, your unique snowflake, and how you could use that to become absolutely great.